Is that because people are just looking for proof, right? They're looking for credibility and proof that you can help them with whatever the problem is they're trying to. Welcome to the Tomorrow's Potential podcast. And joining me is Ash Jones, founder of Great Influence, founder of a new company, which we're going to come on to. I'm going to leave that as a surprise for later on. Me and Ash go way back. I've known him since the early days of Social Chain. He was part of the founding team. He is or was responsible for the birth of Stephen Bartlett's personal brand. He's now gone on to manage, grow, scale some of the most successful personal brands that you will have seen across business, sports, several industries. And I want to dig in today into his brain because it is one of the most interesting, knowledgeable, and insightful in the industry of personal branding and how you can build a presence and become known. So Ash, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for the glowing intro.
I just follow you around just talking like that before you get on stages.
Yeah, that'd be great. When I was actually, we were speaking off podcast about being in Cannes, and I was with Carrie Rose from Rise at 7, and she basically did the job that you did then for me in every room. I was like, I really need you here when I'm doing all my thinking.
It's like a hype person, isn't it? Like you see on stage for music artists come on. You just need that before you go in.
Yeah.
Before we dive into the business stuff, I just want to go way back because you've spent your career helping people shine, essentially, and get people known. Was that you as a kid? Were you always known as that? Is it something that spawned from your childhood, or is it more of a later thing which developed?
No. I was very insular, and I was very focused on me. And I wasn't focused on trying to help anyone else as a kid. Yeah, I was always quite I don't know. Yeah, I had my own ideas and I was quite, self-involved is the wrong word. I guess every kid is a bit like that. But I certainly wasn't like that person as a kid who was trying to do set things up for other people and events and community and all that kind of thing. Yeah, that wasn't me at all. So I think I just think where it came from was just being excited about what I was working on. So take going back to Social Chain and Steve, I was a really big fan of what he was just whenever he was speaking and talking. If I wasn't at Social Chain, I'd have been watching his content and watching the vlogs and I'd have been a fan. So I think that's where it came from is I was a fan of the very first bit of work that I did in this space, personally, and then that gets you excited, and then everything kind of comes from there. So it wasn't something that
it wasn't.
Before I met Steve, it wasn't a thing
to
be like that.
Take me back to that because we both grew up in Manchester. Unfortunately, Ash is a Manchester City fan, but we can glide over that quickly. But we both grew up in Manchester. But you pinged him a message, right? Before I joined. This was probably 2012, because that's been talked about, hasn't it? In a few books, it's been mentioned, and the desire to put yourself out there for something that you believe in and offer value to somebody, or just to put the olive branch out there. That's, from my understanding, is how it first started with your involvement back in the War Park days. Yeah,
but people it's in the story is in a book now, and people in the book they're reflecting on basically I met Steve at an event which a friend had took me to, and I was about to start marketing at university, and I was just a cleaner in a gym one night a week at the time, so I wasn't doing anything. And a friend said, "Oh, Steve's starting a business," because he just dropped out of university, and he said, "You two should chat." And I was like, right, okay. The thing in my head was I was 25 at the time and I was about to go to university. So I thought, I'm going to be 28 when I'm finished university, and everyone's younger than me. They're probably going to have more get up and go than I am after uni. So I'm going to need something else alongside this degree that I'm doing. So I was kind of trying to figure out, I'd sent a DM to the head of social media at Man City before that. About 3 months earlier, being is there anything I can get involved in some way, shape or form? So it was on my mind to try find something alongside studying. And then I was introduced to Steve at an event. He was 18, he just dropped out of uni, and a friend said, "You two should chat." I spoke to him at the event, can't really remember what I said, but then I messaged him on Facebook, and that what I sent, I sent a message on the 2nd of May 2012, and then he didn't come back to me. So I sent like a little follow up, like basically just said haha. And then a little arrow pointing, yeah, I've been ghosted, which is like a theme throughout my career, even now into my adult life. Yeah, so I've been ghosted, and then sent a follow-up message 2.5 weeks later. And people look at it now in this book, it says like, oh, it's a great show of like persistence and da-da-da. I wasn't like...
Yeah, you don't think about it back then, do you?
No. I was like 25, I was a cleaner in a gym. There's no cogs turning in my brain at that point thinking that. I was just like, oh, Steve's not messaged me back, I'll just drop him a... I wasn't, it just, these things just happen. Yeah. It's like if a friend ignores you, you would follow up and be like,
yeah. So and because everyone will know bits of the story or have been involved in the story, but even back, so that's like pre-social chain days. It's just to enlighten people on that. Like, what was that experience like? What did you see? What were you working on? And you joined back like a year later.
Yeah, so he was, it was an idea that he had for a student notice board called Wall Park, and he was trying to get investment for it at the time. He ended up getting investment for £5,000 from a guy called Alistair. But I met him, I think, before that investment came along. And I went to this, he was living in a flat share in Moss Side with like 4 or 5 random people. And do you know, like when you had those laptops in like 2008, like the big clunky laptops, like held together by sellotape at times to keep your charger in? Like I had it where I was like, the charger would just keep knocking off. Like it was that, and also the laptop had like fallen off as well, so it was held together by sellotape. And he had a Word document, and it was like the Word document outlined the idea of the notice board. And he showed me that. He walked me through his idea, and he was like, I'm looking for people to help me if you want to. And I was like, well, I'm at university for the next 3 years, and I'm down. And then, I'd cycled there. So I cycled back, and I remember walking in saying to my mum, like, I don't know what there is about that guy, but I'm just going to hang on to the back of his coattail and see what happens. 14 years later, I'm still doing the exact same thing. So yeah.
That's the kind of feeling that when I walked in first, I knew a guy called Michael Heaven, and we kind of grew up together playing rugby, and then we went to uni together. And he was like, oh, you've got to come and meet Steve and some of the team. And you just get that feeling when you first spoke to him. And when I walked in, and it was before that office, it was in that kind of like shared office space next door while all the works were going on. And it just felt like things were going places. So interesting. You felt something similar. And just for everyone listening, because they will be thinking, obviously, a lot of our audience are people that are building companies, brand CEOs, founders, and they're like, well, they know personal branding is important. They can see him as one of the most important people out there, alongside Mel Robbins and all those other influencers in the space. What did you do back then? And I know, obviously, in hindsight, it probably seems more thoughtful than probably it was more reactive back then and just trying to figure out what works. But just take us back to back then when you were building out what that brand, etc., could look like.
So the personal brand or Wall Park?
So because it started as Wall Park, didn't it, first? And then it went kind of transitioned into, well, let's do the same for the personal brand.
Yeah, so Wall Park was like classic guerrilla marketing, just try everything. We did these like student competitions where they promote Wall Park, and that kind of like worked. And it was just a case of like try a bunch of things and see what works. And then one by one, we eventually, I say we, like Steve drove it massively, eventually just landed on like social media. And like he had these Facebook groups at first with students in, and he used those to promote Wall Park. Like we changed the picture, the header to like visit wallpark.com, and then people would go to the website. It was like, right, okay, that works. And then obviously like met Don McGregor, student problems, like buying social media communities, meets Hannah Anderson, Cathal Berrigan. One by one, these people that had these social media communities started coming into Steve's world, and therefore Wall Park, and it became what Social Chain was Wall Park's marketing. And there was no like idea past that. And what happened was it was the summer, so all the students had gone home. So we kind of had like this 2-3 month period where there wasn't much student activity going on. And I remember Steve saying that what we're going to do in that period, this was when me and Dom were there, was the social media pages that we've got, why don't we try to sell, like find a brand and promote the brand in the same way that we've done Warpark? So he said, right, then in the next hour, whoever gets the most emails, like gets lunch or whatever, the three of us get 100 emails each. We get the 100 emails. I think Steve emails all of them. The one person comes back and it's Umar Kamani at Pretty Little Thing. And then Pretty Little Thing did a campaign, which I think if I had to guesstimate, it was probably like £1,000 or something, something ridiculous like that. And then it really worked for Pretty Little Thing. But then it went back into the draw and Warpark got picked back up because it was August, September's rolling around, students back.
Yeah.
Didn't really think anything of it. And then I think that there was obviously a bit of a shift and the social media idea, the social chain starts coming about. Steve really starts playing with that idea. I actually lost contact with him and Dom at that point. This was February 2013. They went traveling and they went to Bali in February, I think. And I was going to go with them, but I can't remember why I didn't at the time. And then I didn't speak to them until September 2014. Oh no, it was start of 2014 we lost touch. Then 2014, end of it, September, I was moving to London.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anyone. I knew Steve was there. I messaged him. I was like, are you doing anything? And he was like, oh, remember that idea that we put back in the drawer? Well, me and Dom have made something of it and we've just got investment for this, like social chain was becoming a thing. So then I went in at social chain, spent a year trying to do like marketing for the agency, which did nothing. And then at the same time in that year, Steve was speaking at really small events to like 20, 30 people at a time. And that just really worked.
Yeah.
Anytime we spoke, social chain got leads and we were like, right, okay, how do we scale that? How do we like take the impact of the offline and like, cause he can't just speak everywhere. He's not really got the time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it birthed from. And my role, I got fired from as marketing and then I managed to wrangle my way back in under the personal brand thing because Steve just didn't really, we spoke about it for a few years, him starting a YouTube channel, whatever, all this kind of thing. And he didn't really have a purpose for it. And then when social chain started getting leads from him speaking on stage, it was like, there's the purpose.
Yeah.
And the timing was just right. And we'd go in the office. I'd turn up at like 11 p.m. when everyone had gone. And then we'd film videos till like 2, 3, 4 in the morning. And then we'd carry on. And he'd go back to doing social chain stuff 9 till whenever. And then I'd go home and do nothing. And then, we just did that process for a few months of like filming these videos late at night and putting them out on the internet. And they started to get really good traction. And that's when it was like, right, okay, let's make this into a proper role. And I came back in and the personal brand thing started then, but it was really just like content creation. It wasn't like this big picture personal brand thing. It was like, let's just create content because that's going to help social chain. And we just kept doing that and it evolved into like one-off pieces into a vlog, and then the vlog became daily and it all started building.
That's an interesting insight for anyone that's listening. What you said there I thought was gold, where you need a purpose for any kind of marketing or content you're putting out there. And if the purpose, if it is lead generation, it's like, well, find something that works first and then think about what is the way that you can 10x that? What's the way that you can grow that into something and scale the impact? And that goes not just for speaking or personal branding, that goes for across the whole spectrum of marketing.
Yeah, it's interesting that on my LinkedIn, I think it's still there now, I put on when I left Social Chain, I put on my experience, like telling the story of Social Chain through the eyes of its CEO, Stephen Bartlett.
Yeah.
Which was like, we didn't start any of it to build like a Stephen Bartlett brand. It was literally just like, this is the smartest way we think we can drive business.
Yeah.
And like you say, we'd found a way that worked. And then it was like personal brand was the way to scale what had actually worked for us from like a sales and marketing point of view. Yeah. And before we move into the 2018 and Great Influence journey,
What from that period, the Sociame period, would you say are the things which you still use today? The learnings, whether it's from Steve, the business, the culture, the scaling, internationalization.
I like everything that I know about personal brand was in those like formative years. And the interesting thing was that it wasn't just like working on Steve's personal brand from a professional point of view. Like you'll remember personally, there was a group of us where what we were posting personally on Instagram was like how we showed up online.
Your brand.
Yeah, your brand, exactly. And it was like it was a joke. It was all like funny, but really in those conversations and how it was all thought about, it was really, really ahead of where things were going, how we were speaking as a friendship group, and we were influencing each other's like thoughts and opinions on how we present and show up personally online. And I took so much from that, like one of Steve's best friends, Anthony Logan, like how he thought about, he worked in branding, and it really translated into personal brand, and he was almost like the king of personal brand back in the day. And I learned so much from like how he spoke about it. So it all in those years, it was all formative to understanding how somebody can be perceived and how they can influence that in the actions that they do, and the knock-on effect of that in what you're doing in your life all kind of came in those formative years. And like, now 100% all of that is still really there. And the interesting thing, probably not for me from a learning point of view, but just from like the Stephen Bartlett thing, was how much, looking back now, how much iteration existed to what he was doing. So like the amount of like content that was put out that was just like really just trying different things and seeing what worked, the amount of series that we did, the amount of like YouTube ideas that we had. There was like there was one or two podcasts before Diary of a CEO, like all that kind of thing, all the iterating at speed that happened in that period was a really, really interesting, like, it's almost like watching a band try to find their sound.
Yeah.
And then they get the sound and they make an unbelievable album afterwards. But it was really interesting now to look back and see him go through that process of trying to find his sound. It was a good two to 3 years of really like, it must have been like, you know, watching, I don't know, Oasis in the practice room in 1992 kind of thing. Like you see that process that nobody else really sees. Everybody just sees like Diary of a CEO and him on Dragon's Den and doing social media content and things like that, and thinks that it just happened.
That is so true, because like a good family friend growing up was Matt Healy from the 1975s.
Yeah.
And the same, so they used to be called something different. It was
Drive Like I Do.
Drive Like I Do. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And when they used to perform at like family dues, it was a very, very different sound than what you'd hear now. And you're right, that iteration and not being afraid to put yourself out there, even though it's not perfect, I think it's a good one when people are thinking about it. Can you remember any of the ones that didn't work? Have you got any funny ones?
I was saying to him about this the other day, like there was a series that we did called Everyday Entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I was like, why do you think that didn't work? And it was basically down to like, we just didn't really go all in on it at the time. But the concept was basically quite ahead of the time of what was actually happening, in that he went and interviewed YouTubers. And the idea was that they're now becoming the entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And this was way before the creator economy. This was like 2017.
Yeah.
And now that's a massive thing. Like creators are entrepreneurs now. You have people like, whether that's Mr. Beast or KSI or Grace Beverly, whoever it is. And it was a really like ahead of the curve concept of like, go interview these YouTubers, not even creators at the time, YouTubers, about how they're now becoming the modern day entrepreneur. So it was one that didn't really like go anywhere, but I think the concept of what it was still quite strong.
Yeah. And then so 2018 comes around. I remember you took a break and you didn't rush into anything. You were like, I want to watch the World Cup. I'm then going to I'm going to think about what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to come back with stuff. So just take us through that process of, because there'll be loads of people that are either starting their own thing or leaving the corporate world that think, I want to do something. They don't want to then just rush straight into something. What was your going through your head? What was your process time period?
I just my time at Social Chain was like, I felt like I'd come to like a natural end of that, and I had no idea what I was going to do next. It wasn't really obvious to me of like what the past 4 years of experience with Steve gave, and also the trajectory that Steve was on as well.
Yeah.
Like I knew he was flying at that point, because he'd been named like e-consultancy, had named him like the most influential person in agency land. But at that point, it wasn't like, okay, he's going to go on to have one of the biggest podcasts in the world and beyond like that. Yeah. He was still early in that journey.
Yeah. But even back then, even like 2017, 2018, say we were going to pitches, and we were Manchester based at the time.
Yeah.
And we were then going to London a lot, because that's where a lot of the business was. And you was getting like,
he was famous
on trains. Like people coming up, I've seen you on the vlog, because Dodds was pulling us around everywhere filming stuff. And even back then, I was like, this is unusual. You don't see this very often with business people.
Highly unusual. Like literally business people. Like he was famous from like the minute he started putting out content.
Yeah.
Like he was getting people asking him for photos within a couple of videos, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which. Yeah. But yeah, I'd come to like a natural end, and then I left, and I was on garden leave for a month, which was May 2018. And then the World Cup kicked off in June 2018. And I was just kind of like, right, I'm going to just watch the World Cup. And I didn't force it. And I thought, I've got two options. I've built somebody's personal brand up, and I've also built social media pages up. Yes, for a personal person, but I'd still grown like way over 1 million followers at that point.
Yeah, you knew how to do it.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, I'll go down both routes. I'll get some work as like social media for like companies and see that. And I tried that and really didn't like it. And then it was actually a friend of ours called Tim Hyde was like, you should do the personal brand thing. And I put out a LinkedIn post saying I've left Social Chain, and a couple of people got back to me, and I met them for coffee, and I asked them, I was like, what do you think? I told them everything I'd done over the past 5 years. And they were like, what do you think I should do? And it was pretty unanimous of like, oh, you should help other entrepreneurs do what you did with Steve.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we went for coffee in Altrincham in and around that time, and you were like floating the idea like that. That's a good thing for people to do. Anyone that's listening, before you just jump in, is like the people around you often know your blind spots, don't they? And they can give you some real feedback.
Yeah. So it wasn't on my radar kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it was only because of talking to other people and that being like, right, okay, maybe I should think about this a bit more. Because the reason I didn't want to was because I was like, to do it well, I'm going to need to find another Steve. And they're like, Steve's a one of one. Do you know what I mean? So I was like, where am I going to find someone that good? So I was actually put off by the idea of doing it, because I thought it would, you just need to be working with the right person. And then I had an intro from with a guy called Dan, who ran an agency collective thing. Yeah. And I explained to him, and he said, oh, you know what? I'm just going to intro you to 10 people after this call. He introed me to 10 founders of agencies. And one of them was a guy called Chris Donnelly. And I met up with him, and he said, straight away, he was like, just so you know, I'm never going to film a video and I'm never going to take a photo. And I was like, wow, this is going to be fun.
Yeah. Look at him now.
Yeah. Fast forward, like, what was that? 8 years ago now. He's now like multiple million follower on platforms, films videos all the time kind of thing. But that was kind of the journey that I went on, was like finding people. I describe it as going right back down to the bottom after Steve.
Yeah.
I worked with like a guy that ran a construction company in Leeds. Chris Donnelly at the time was like an agency owner of like a small agency. Like he didn't have a personal profile at that point. I worked with people who had zero personal profile, and
Yeah.
they were all like small business owners.
Yeah.
So I went and cut my teeth with people where it would be really, really difficult to build them up, whereas none of them had what like Steve had at the time.
Yeah. And do you think that was the right thing for you to have done for the business doing that? Or do you think if you were to go back in hindsight, would you have gone after people that had more traction?
I think for me, because I just didn't have the confidence that I was able to do anything at that point, whether it was start a business, ask someone for money, build a personal brand, I just had no confidence of doing anything.
Yeah.
So I think I needed to go like build the confidence up. And if I'd have gone straight from Steve to like, say, for example, 3 years later, start working with Gary Neville, I needed those 3 year gap between like that work happening. Whereas if I'd have gone straight one to the other, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it. And in the way that I look at it is one of the people that I worked with early doors sold fire doors and like electronic gates.
Yeah.
And if you can build that personal brand.
Yeah. You can do it.
Yeah, so it was a really, really valuable period for multiple reasons. And I just, I took my time with it because I wasn't sure whether it would work. I got to the end of the year. I remember saying to my mum that I'm just not sure about this thing. And then March 2019, I just had a like moment where it all kind of clicked into place and I started really driving results for people. And then, I was off to the races then.
And then it's Springboard, right? So how did you get from there to Gary Neville? And you worked with loads of really famous people. Was there did you then have to build your personal brand, or was it referrals? Or I'm just trying to think what would be useful for everyone listening. It's like to go from the fire door companies to some of the most well-known people.
Yeah.
In practice, people don't often talk about like the how.
100% the Steve case study.
Yeah.
Like if I think of the two breakthrough moments, was the first big client that I got was Julian Hearn, who's the founder of Huel.
Yeah.
And then the highest profile person that I've worked with in great influence has been Gary Neville. And both of those looked at the fact that I worked with Steve and saw that as like yeah, for sure. Like the Huel intro came from a guy called Jamal who was on the board at Huel, and I reached out to him, but I said that I'd been working with Steve for the past 4 years and he was willing to listen.
Yeah.
The Steve thing opened an immense amount. It still does to this day. Like literally the last inquiry that I got, it says referral Stephen Bartlett. I got it on Sunday and it's still like,
that's crazy.
Yeah, 8 years later. So there's other things of like, yes, I kind of started putting myself out there and speaking about personal brand. And I think that thought leadership side really played a role in people trusting as well. And then word of mouth of me just being out there and meeting people, and you start doing good work for one or two people, and the knock-on effect, like people that I had as clients early doors would intro me to other people, and the founder circles are small in the UK. Like everyone kind of knows everyone. But having that case study of like not just the hero client, but the timing of the hero. So like this, Steve started exploding in like 2020. No coincidence that great influence starts rapidly growing in like 2023. I'd say that it's not easy to get, but if you can find you can get that case study and the timing of the case study really aligns with the stars, then that kind of it powers.
That's a good one. Is that because people are just looking for proof, right? They're looking for credibility and proof that you can help them with whatever the problem is they're trying to solve or the goal they're trying to reach.
It's interesting in that I actually met a guy and I'd prepared actually at Social Chain, everything was decks, right?
Yeah.
So I turned up to this meeting with like a 15-slide deck of being like, I'll talk you through this kind of thing. And I opened my laptop and he just shut the laptop and he said, you've worked with Stephen Bartlett. I don't need to see a deck.
Yeah. It's the proof. Yeah. I say that all the time because that's my world. Because I work a lot in marketing and sales, and when you're trying to convince someone, the biggest differentiator you can often do to the competition is showing someone that you've done it before, because they'll have loads of objections as to why they don't want to work with you, and they'll latch onto case studies or similar people that have got the result which they want.
Yeah.
And so, I always say to, especially if you're starting out for founders, it's just a great piece of advice.
Yeah, it's like a brand fame thing as well. Like, imagine, I remember seeing the person who did, I think there was like a Burger King tweet that broke the tweet record of likes.
Yeah.
And I remember coming across the guy who wrote the tweet.
Yeah.
And I thought, you're on.
You got it.
Yeah, if you've got that fame moment that's very much in the public eye of something, like whoever did the Oreo Super Bowl ad kind of thing, like you don't need to sell yourself, because the fame piece of work that you do, and it's really important that that piece of work is famous culturally, not just like it's like revered. Do you know what I mean? And if you can get that, that's
a good idea. Okay, right. Personal branding, more tactical stuff, because what you said before about Chris Donnelly resonated, and a lot of people were listening will have, say, 10, 15, 20 years experience, and they'll have a fear of putting themselves out there. Yeah. How do you get over that? And what are like the building blocks which you need to get in place first before you even think about, say, like posting or content schedules, etc.?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know this for sure. I can't speak on behalf of Chris, but there was two sides to him when I first met him, which was like complete reluctance to like put oneself out there because of like, probably the truth is it just a lack of confidence at the time, despite being good at what you do. So I would always say to like Chris that when he spoke, it was always really good and he should film it. And he'd get on stage and he'd be comfortable there because he'd hosted so many events before. It was like second nature to him. Yeah. So he'd speak and you'd be like, oh, you're really interesting and really good at that. But then the other thing, like content online, is just a different thing. And he wasn't confident there. But then the other side of it, which drove him, was clearly would it be like a chip on the shoulder or an ego thing or a competitiveness thing of being like, oh, this guy who started an agency at the same time as I did is absolutely killing it because he's like building his personal brand. So despite how one outweighed the other, right, it's like the fact that he took the meeting with me was driven off the chip of the shoulder, ego, competitive thing. But then the first thing he said to me was the shield up of being like, I'm not confident right now. So I feel like you have to find, in the same way Steve was willing to do it versus when he wasn't willing to do it, was like, oh, we've got a purpose now, it's helping drive sales. I think that you have to find something that gives you the drive to do it. Yeah. And once you find that thing, whatever it is, and I think you also need a bit of evidence. So like, this is completely unrelated, but we're doing something at the minute for like new business. And I know that the second that I have the evidence that this new business tactic is going to work, it's like my dopamine is going to go through the roof. Yeah. So I feel like once you have the evidence that backs up the purpose of why you're doing it, that's a very powerful driver. But I think it's just a reframing job internally in that there's going to be a couple of things that you're going to tell yourself, like, why would anyone care about what I've got to say is a very familiar one. I've not actually got that much to say. And who am I to like talk about this stuff? And like common things that come into people's heads. And for me, the reframes are, one is to like take the personal emotion out of it as best you can. So I always try to tell people to think of it like you're not building a personal brand, you're just building a personal marketing channel.
That's a good one.
It's a very unemotional way of looking at it. Like, yeah, if you were to build a newsletter in your brand, you wouldn't be like, oh, what if people care? They're going to, what if somebody doesn't like my nobody ever sits there at night thinking, oh, my newsletter only got 2 likes or whatever. Because it's an unemotional process, is building a newsletter. You just go and do it and you try. And if it doesn't work, you figure out why and so on and so forth. So yeah, try to find a way to like reframe it in your own head to take the emotion out of it. Understand that it's an arbitrage opportunity. So the feeling that you have that puts you off it is the exact same one that everybody else feels. And like, I was there when Steve felt the exact same way, and I saw him get through it. And even with Gary Neville, like some of the things that he's done for the first time, I've seen the exact same thing. It's in a different field, but I've seen the feeling in him, and he's verbalized it. And I've been like, right, okay, everyone gets this. But then there's a small cohort of people who feel it and just
keep going.
Do it anyway. So it's like, recognize that everyone experiences the feeling you're feeling, and know that if you take the step forward, you've created an arbitrage opportunity against everybody else.
That's an interesting one, because then most people will quit, right? Most people won't want to keep going back to that feeling.
Yeah, because they think that the feeling is unique to them.
And
it's not. It's literally the pattern across everyone. And then the final thing is just, you literally, it is like going to the gym. You hate it at first. You're intimidated by it at first. It's not enjoyable at first, or it's like starting running. Like, I did a half marathon recently in a 12-week training plan. The first week I just couldn't run 10 minutes, and then by the end of it, an hour is easy. It's building a muscle, so you just have to feel the fear and do it anyway, and recognize that unfortunately, it's like the man in the arena thing. You can only become the man in the arena out in the arena. You can't practice it in your room.
And you're going to get people, no matter how good you are. Jude Bellingham scored for us, didn't he, this week? But still people criticising him, still people saying he shouldn't have gone to the World Cup pre these last two games. So no matter how good and what your record says in whatever field, being aware that people are always going to criticise you, but they've never been in the arena. You shouldn't be ever listening to people that have never been in. If people have been in the past and are giving you advice, I always think that's where you should kind of consider it. But if someone's never stepped in your shoes, it's very hard, or you're letting their opinions affect your behavior, and they've never stepped in your shoes.
Yeah, I remember one of the very early vlogs that Steve did, and he was walking to a Nuffield gym in Printworks, and he was filming, and he turned the camera and he was like, there's a group of guys over there who are like mocking me because I'm filming myself. And he was like, this is a really interesting moment in that everything in me wants to stop filming because I'm being made fun of publicly. But he was almost like, I need to continue doing it regardless, because what am I going to do? Stop doing this for you that are watching, because a bunch of people over there started mocking me. Which, like, it's very daunting, like when you're early into doing this kind of thing, to be publicly called out in that kind of way. It shows like a element of self-awareness of being like, this is the barrier and challenge that would make most people stop.
If a founder or CEO now, they're usually very time poor, wearing a lot of hats, if they had 1 hour a week, what would you say is the highest value thing, task, activity in relation to their personal brand or content that they could do?
In terms of like two things, I guess. One is like the execution of it. Like, what do you do execution wise? Like, what's the best, I guess, content or something like that to put on? But for me, it's more like, in that hour, can you find things that only you've got a unique perspective on? So like, open up your calendar and go through like, right, what are the meetings that I had this week? Was there anything interesting that was said in them? Like, almost like info dumping your own unique experience, because where a lot of founders maybe go wrong is like in the content game, they'll produce something that anyone could have said. And this is actually a thing that's always stuck with me that Steve said. He would say to us as a team, he'd say, does the world need to hear this from me today? And what he meant by that is like, if I'm going to say something on company culture, has somebody else already said it? Or like, what can only I say? So yeah, I'd use the hour to look around what I was doing and the experiences that I've had and the conversations I've had and the things that I've took away from the work that I've been doing, and go, what is it that only I can say on this?
That's a great piece of advice.
Yeah, it's just always useful. And I feel like the difference between someone who's really good at this and who's maybe in amongst the crowd of everyone else is taking the time to figure out something that only you could say. So I had this recently where started this company called Inga Company, and basically it's working with leadership teams, helping brands get their leadership teams more active on social media. And the director of product development at Marks and Spencer, Catherine Turner, starts going viral on TikTok because she's creating TikToks showing the behind the scenes of how Marks and Spencer do their product development in food. So it's like this great moment that speaks to why the company that I started exists.
Yeah.
And I see everyone posting about it, being like, the director of product development at MS is doing this amazing thing, and LinkedIn does what it does, where it like jumps on somebody doing something interesting. And every single person was just pointing out what had happened. And I thought, I feel the pressure to say something, but I'm just going to sit and figure out what it is that only I can say, because everyone else is just repeating what has happened. So that's not really going to cut it, because I wasn't first to say it. So I need to actually say something substantial. And I kind of sat on it, and I'd been making TikToks for about 2 months at this point, and none of them had got over 300 views. And then I figured out what my angle on the Catherine Turner thing was. And then I made a TikTok about it, and it did 150,000 views. Wow. And I was like, okay, that was worth me not stating the obvious, which plays into this idea of like, sit down with that hour and think about what is it that either I uniquely can say, like only I could say. So like in this conversation, for example, there's only one person that was seeing Steve open that laptop and walk through the wall park thing when he was 18. It was me. Like, that's my only I can tell that story. Or it's not so much your unique experience, but what's like your experience-led experience. So I've spent 10 years in this space now. And what is the experience that my knowledge and insight and all that has given me that I can lend to this thing? So I feel like that's the best. It's the best use of time, is like, what's the thing that is most valuable for you as a person to say? And if you do that for an hour every week and figure out what those things are, the content that will come off the back of it will be absolute gold.
That's a great piece of advice. So In Good Company is only recently launched. It's an area, so one of my good friends, Finn O'Kane, runs a company called Wise, the employee branding agency. And I saw the impact of leadership personal branding when they spoke about topics, but often it was forbidden, or there was rule sets, or there was forced disingenuous content that was getting shared, when actually they had so many good ideas, great stories. They were close fingers on the pulse in lots of different projects. And when I saw you launching, I thought that is such a great idea, to turn your knowledge from great influence and doing it for the top of the company, the founder or the CEO, but for that layer below. So can you talk us through, if that leadership team's invisible, what does switching it on do for an organization? What are the benefits for a company doing that?
There's so much, depending on the company. The interesting thing about what we saw with Steve and Social Chain was, at some point, Steve got bigger than Social Chain. And people would say, like, is this, I don't know, they'd question whether it was actually helping Social Chain or whether it was of self-interest. And his answer was always, I thought, really interesting, in that he was like, ask everyone in the company if their job is easier. And he was like, the recruitment team are able to hire people way easier. The accounts team are able to like get intros and leads and close pitches easier. Like, everyone's job is easier as a result of Social Chain having a person of influence in the industry. And that was really, really evident. And I think it's just that, but scaled. So you take like 2 people in Marks and Spencer's do it publicly. The director of product development is on TikTok and Instagram, and then the CEO is on LinkedIn. And the CEO is often seen on store visits, or if there's like the performance of Marks and Spencer as a brand, discussing that, like earnings and things like that. And he's playing this whole piece of like trust and humanizing the brand and being close from company culture perspective, and also like a media personal mouthpiece. So
Yeah.
rather than like, I saw he did a piece in the Times, and it's like the piece in the Times that he did, he posted it on his own LinkedIn. I guarantee you the impressions that he got on that were way bigger than the readership of the Times.
Yeah.
So it's like you own the communication channel in a sense. And then the director of product development is doing an entirely different job in connecting with like people. The consumers absolutely love her,
Yeah.
and they're making recommendations in the comments of what products they want to see next. And like,
Yeah.
it's this whole element of almost like opening the door of the inner workings of the factory to people, which the CEO could never do, because the CEO isn't in
Yeah.
the inner workings of the factory. Whereas the VPs and the directors, like that layer underneath, they're doing
Yeah.
the work, and the C-suite are playing a different job. So companies have been aware of the power of like C-suite communication for decades, like having a spokesperson as
Yeah.
part of the brand. And I think it's just like the modernization and multi-layer unlock of that
Yeah.
that's happening. So, and I think the timing of it is very, when I started Great Influence in 2018, I felt like there was a cycle about to play out in personal branding for founders of like startups and agencies and things like that. And I feel like I'm in another cycle now where
Yeah.
I'm like, as you do with almost like social media, you see these things unfold and you know
Yeah.
the patterns. And I think that the pattern is happening again. And then in the last 6 months, there's just been things to back that up, where like I've just been to Cannes, and the Forbes have just published an article yesterday saying that at Cannes, C-suite content creators are the new influencers. Because for the
Wow.
first time this year at Cannes, it wasn't just the celebrities and the athletes and it was actually the C-suite that were also the influencers. So there's been a number of like pieces of evidence, the McDonald's CEO going viral, the woman from Marks and Spencer's, like these things just keep happening in the past few months that kind of like, right, okay, the timing of this is very apt, in that there's no difference between whether a brand should have been doing it today and 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's just now that it's the right time for them to kind of, and the language is right and the evidence is there that makes them go, okay, there's something in this, versus 3 years ago when it might have been very guarded and uninterested as a result. So,
and you out of our friendship group have always been one to spot when something is about to take off, whether it's a content format, a new trend, a new business opportunity. So if a company's listening to this and they've got a C-suite leadership team, you showed me a tool which you created where you can plug in the different roles and volume of people that you've got in that team, and then it will tell you the cost or the missing impact which your company, whether it's brand awareness, what you'd have to pay for that, retention of your staff. Just talk us through that a little bit, because that was fascinating when you showed me that a couple of weeks ago.
yeah, it's just all publicly available data that you can link it into either directly or indirectly of like leadership visibility. So take like your employer brand, like a brand with a weak employer brand will pay on average 10% higher in salaries of general employer base than a company that has a strong employer brand.
Yeah.
So like your leader, like the leaders in a company are such a huge part of the culture and employer brand and how it shows up. Like nobody can speak to the culture of a brand better than its leaders. And also now, especially with like the rise of LinkedIn and the rise of LLMs, like people that are looking to work at companies are actually going and seeking out what they can find. It's like Glassdoor 2.0.
Yeah.
And if your leadership can show up, it's positive for the employer brand. If they don't, it's also like it says something as well. So there's stuff like that around like employer brand and attracting talent and hiring, and also retention of existing employees. Like there's data points around how a visible leader helps employees feel more engaged, therefore increases the likelihood of them retaining their employment in the company. And there's multiple data points now across like different levers that a business might need to pull across recruiting, talent, employer brands, sales, commercial growth, even down to like investor, like institutional investment. If a company is planning an IPO anytime soon, there's data that shows that a company with a strong founder story raises on average 80% higher initial pricing for an IPO from institutional investors. So, and you're not talking about like take the hiring one. If a company has 2,000 employees, they pay 10% more on staff, it's a couple of million. Whereas an IPO,
it's a hell of a lot.
You're talking like, I read a stat about how CEO communications on average can be worth like 350 million to the right company. And you can see why. So there's a lot of, again, like the data is coming out now that kind of allows you to be able to rationalize why a company should invest in this. Whereas when I first started in 2018, I was literally going off, trust me.
Yeah. Whereas now the data's caught up.
Yeah.
Mate, that's been phenomenal. The last thing I always ask everybody, because a big component of tomorrow's potential is the focus on health, relationships, friendships outside of work, so that you as the founder or the CEO or the MD or the partner can be the best inside of work and perform at a high level consistently. You've been going now 8 years.
Yeah.
What are the things, like tactical things, that have helped you? Like you said, you just done the half marathon, but over that 8 years, I know you put in what did you put outside, like the hot tub in the crib. What are like the tactical things which people don't often talk about, but actually have made your life, relationships, happiness, so that when work is stressful, and it is a roller coaster building and scaling a company, you've done a phenomenal job, that have helped on that last 8 year journey?
Yeah, for me, it's music. Like, I was obsessed with music as a kid, and it's been like the one thing that I've continually been obsessed with. Like, if I've got a spare minute, like there's an album that I just started listening to this weekend, and I love it. And I had like 20 minutes before a meeting before, and I was like, oh, can I just listen to it a couple of times?
Yeah.
And that passion that I had from something when I was younger and throughout my whole life, really indulging that wherever I can has been like I go all over the world to concerts kind of thing.
That's great.
And like that to me is, I think it's helped me to create a personal identity away from business. And I think that's where a lot of people get a bit tripped up, is they tie all their identity into the business that they're running. So you can imagine when it goes up, you're on cloud nine, but when it goes down, things get tricky.
Yeah.
And if you're in business for 8 years, you experience all the ups and downs. So to tie your identity so heavily into it is you're asking for trouble. Whereas the way that I look at my year is like, yes, what's happening in business, but also like, oh, I went to that gig in, like I saw Oasis in LA, and that was like such a highlight of the year. And so my personal, like my overall identity isn't tied into one thing so much. I've managed to like pull it out a bit more. And I've done with like family and friends and stuff like that, but I feel like something that's just for you, like whatever your personal passion is, and to try to make that a focus of your life as well. Like I literally build my calendar out and my life around these, like going to certain gigs like all that kind of thing. So I feel like being really, and I found that after like halfway through Great Influence, I started leaning into that stuff way more. And I think it was a response to kind of like, okay, remember that you're not just like this business. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a great one, because not many people talk about that one. No one's mentioned that so far. And I think that is so on the money. Because it's a roller coaster, and if your emotions are tied to the roller coaster, then your emotions are going to be a roller coaster. So having that release, and also just for you. And I always tell people, like, what's the thing when you were a kid that you did when no one's watching? It's like that you just enjoy, that you had passion about. Try and get a bit of that in your life, because we grow up and we've got kids and family and business and so many responsibilities. But actually, even if it's just like you say, 20 minutes, 15 minutes to do the thing that you love.
Yeah, and it's also something that's not competitive. So like you could go, oh, my passion is football and I'll follow my football team, but they win and lose as well. And that's just as unhealthy as business. So it's like, can you find something where it's not a role? Like music for me is just a constant high. Like there's no, it's not competitive. It's not like win, lose. It's not, do you know what I mean? It's just a personal passion interest.
I love that. Well, mate, thanks very much. If any of this landed with the audience, where can they find you?
On LinkedIn is best. Ash Jones. Yeah.
Yeah. I would highly recommend it. If you've got a team, leadership team, large company, if you want to build your own personal brand, if you're CEO founder, he is the best to do it in the industry. And he's not paid me to say that. So appreciate your time today, mate. And
thank you, my friend.
Have a great day.
Shall do.